Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are going to have a conversation about the relationship between the CIO and the CFO. Let me put a question to you about the historical relationship between the CIO and the CFO. From all your experiences, what has that relationship been like historically? Can we talk a little bit about the things that have been good about it and not so good about it?
Prior to the CIO role that I've just been in, I've been in transformation roles. And the context for that is in the transformation role, typically I would work with the CEO, the CFO, and the chief people officer. So there was always that triad of people I would try and get together for the transformation. And the reason I share that is more often than not, we would talk about the CIO. And the topic was usually around cost and capability. And having then jumped into the CIO role, I've had 4 CFOs in 5 years. And so with that background, changing the relationship has been on my agenda, which is how do I shift the conversation from, yes, there is a cost element to IT, but what's the value it's bringing? It's become a very different conversation, but that's because she shifted the relationship in terms of credibility, the individual, and therefore what the business value is.
Yeah, and I think that theme about business value has come up in many conversations today. Vicky, what are your thoughts on that relationship?
As with Sanjay, actually, the relationships I've had with CFOs has always been very positive when you can demonstrate the business value. So the conversation starts with, especially in times of hardship, how much can you cut from your budget, your OPEX and your CAPEX? And always then being able to turn that conversation round to, well, actually, let's not look at my budget yet. Let's look at what I can do to enable cost savings, efficiencies, or revenue in the rest of the business. Then let's go back and have a look at a conversation.
You know, it depends what you want from technology. Definitely, sort of probably the first 20 years of my career, the tech team usually were part of finance, and it was very much, you know, the back office systems. And I think in the last 10 years or so, I just think that, you know, technology has rebranded itself much more as an enabler within the business. And therefore, I think that opens up so many more opportunities because, you know, it's not just a cost, it's, you know, it's a generator of value. Yeah, I think the role of the CTO has really massively changed. And, you know, now as, you know, thinking about the more senior people in organizations, you know, the CTO is often, you know, right up there now with the CFO in the way it wasn't before. It was definitely a sub-function.
That's interesting. Brandon, yeah.
I think it's interesting because I saw it a little bit, maybe the other side of the coin, where I saw in relation to the conversation that was before around the changing role of the CFO, I saw the CFO office changing to be more in line with the CIO now, where I think historically there was the CIO looking for innovation for the business and how do we drive productivity and innovation and new technology, where the historic view of the CFO was controlling costs and compliance. And now that that role has changed so dramatically for the CFO, I find it much more in line with also thinking productivity. Much like you were saying, how do we get together on the same page and look at the business value of this? And how do we drive overall value for the company and productivity all around? So because for me, I saw it more as the role of the CFO changing than the CIO.
In many cases, you've succeeded to report to the CEO, but the real holder of the purse strings is the CFO. And even the CEO can dream grand dreams, say, oh, I think this would be great, but why don't you go talk to Carol, the CFO, and see what she thinks, right? So all you got out of the relationship with the CEO is a permit or license to go in and have one meeting with the CFO to see if this thing has any legs whatsoever. So the other benefit about reporting to a CFO is, again, they have the power and authority to make things happen in the company. If you are trying to introduce new technology or some form of innovation or whatever, you know, you can be like St. John the Baptist wandering in the desert. But if the CFO is over your shoulder and you have a common agenda, that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day, right?
Okay, maybe we can open it up to a few questions, if there are any questions from the audience.
As a IT director, CIO, I have to evolve, and I am seeing an evolution of the CFO and what they were before and what they are now. And what I'm also been told that it's better to work with the CEO as a direct report as opposed to the CFO if I want to get things done. I think that's changed now. Do you think the CFOs on that panel, that dial has now changed enough so that actually we should be working with CFOs? That's one question. The second question is, do you think the CIO and the IT director types should be sitting at the same table, having the same conversation, making those decisions?
Just my view. I think that if I was a CTO, I would want to report into the CEO, not the CFO. With the best one in the world, CFOs just don't understand tech as well. But also, you really need the CEO to have your back. You need a CEO that is really thinking about tech as part of the strategy and value creation. And I think having that voice around the executive table, I think, is really powerful.
For me, it's about being in the conversation when it's relevant rather than being in the chair, if you understand that distinction. You don't have to be reporting to the CEO if you're at the C-suite every time there's a conversation that's relevant to technology. And that's part of my lessons, which is when you're not in the room, that's calories being burnt. Because you're not in the room, the topic comes up, you then have to respond to it, which then goes back to the response, to the response, to the response. So you're always chasing at one level. Now, every company's different, so you're only hearing our individuals' perspectives.
I have a little bit of a thing on that. So for me, I've got something to bring from other organisations as well. So I don't just rock up and talk about technology. So that's my kind of, I suppose, added contribution to that. I am a business leader first and foremost who happens to be a CIO, and I think my peers feel like that as well about theirs. So
The only thing I would note is that Gartner Research conducts an annual survey in which they ask this question, who do you report to? And then they look at the year-to-year change, and the stereotype is still very well entrenched that if the percentage of CIOs who are reporting to CFOs has gone down, it's the underlying tone of the survey is we're winning. Like we're breaking through. If it goes in the other direction, that means we're being marginalized again. Although I think, as you can tell from the panel, we all have our own specific experiences in different situations that make the actual reporting relationship somewhat immaterial.
But the CTO role, it can only get more prominent around the table. It can, and I think that's a really exciting place to be.
Well, I think we'll end it on the CTO role can only get more powerful and move forward.
that's a great point.
That's why we're here.
Absolutely. Thank you all very much.